in my own experience and how I've seen things happen, I think the vice principal role is in some ways the most kind of underutilized position. And what happens is you get these fantastic teacher leaders that shine. They are talented in the classroom, organizationally, they're talented, they take on initiatives, then and they're noticed. They go through the interview process, maybe once or twice, then they become a VP. And then what happens is they're counting. Do I have enough chairs in the classrooms? Doing endless hours of bus duty. And my own experience was here in BC, when I became a vice principal, after a few short months, the teachers went on work to rule. And I was doing hours of bus duty and supervision. That was my job. And that joy and the love and the passion that I had for working in the classroom, I was outside, I was freezing cold, my feet were wet all the time. And I thought, what am I doing? And I know those jobs have to be done. Yes, they do. But I feel like we're wasting really good talent.
You're listening to our podcast guest this week, Dr. Shannon Behan, president of the British Columbia Principal Vice Principal Association, also known as the BCPVPA. And I'm Stan Baker, one of the hosts of Circle Forum, along with Shelley Steele and Steve Young. Vice principals are often highly skilled educators whose potential is not fully realized. Dr. Shannon Behan discusses how the talents of vice principals can be overshadowed by the duties like bus supervision, counting classroom chairs. Intentionality in developing vice principals into future principals is crucial. Shannon emphasizes setting clear roles, responsibilities, and career trajectories to prepare vice principals for principalship.
This week's podcast is brought to you by the word intentionality. Research in positive psychology has found that individuals who set clear intentions and goals tend to experience higher levels of happiness and fulfillment. This is because intentional living helps people align their actions with their values and aspirations, leading to a more coherent and satisfying life experience.
At the end of this episode, be sure to visit our website, www.restorative.ca, where you can find all kinds of resources on leadership from a restorative relational perspective. And if you enjoy this episode, make sure you subscribe on Spotify or YouTube. Steve's away this week, so let's head over to the discussion with Shelley and me, Stan.
I think it's a sign of good things is I've had 5 different vice principals, and all of them have gone on to become principals. And it's with intent that I've told them right in the very beginning, I think you're going to be a principal and I'm going to start preparing you right now. We're going to work together because it's going to happen. If you're in this position, I think that's what you want for yourself, and we're going to work together to make that happen. And then that is a road that somebody goes on and then they become a principal. But having that training time really matters.
I love the word intentional and the intent to develop leaders. But what structurally gets in the way of vice principals not doing those leadership things and having to do what becomes the most expensive yard duty coverage person in the world, right?
Yeah. I think it's actually the intention. We go back to that word. It's the intentionality of setting up that relationship. So for example, the very first thing my practice has always been is to sit down with my team, my vice principal, and it sounds simple, but outline roles and responsibilities and what you do, what I do, and talk to them even about what's your vision for your long-term trajectory, and have those conversations. So first of all, the piece of moving from union to a non-union position is very different. So we unpack that. What does it mean? Even the way that you develop relationships or how you speak to people, you have to have time to start understanding the context that you're working in. Sometimes vice principals, they're teaching in a school, they become a vice principal and they stay in the same school. I think that can be a difficult transition, not just for the individual, but for the teachers that they were side-by-side colleagues with, sometimes venting, which is okay too, with colleagues about principles or decisions that are being made at the school level or the district level. And then all of a sudden, then they shifts and they have to learn to communicate carefully about the vision of the school and the district. Like that in itself is a dynamic shift. So first of all, like I said, we sit down and I just say very clearly, so in my office, what we speak about stays locked tight with us. And we can problem solve. You can disagree. We can disagree with one another. That's absolutely correct. We have to be able to do that. But the really trusting relationship starts here, because there's going to be a lot that we're going to unpack and we're going to come up against and you're going to be unsure about. And I don't want you to be in a position where you're making a decision and you think that I may or may not agree with it, or it may or may not be the right thing. Like, I want to put you on solid footing as well. And in my practice, the vice principal and I would meet every Thursday, and then we would have a topic. Sometimes it could be half an hour, sometimes 15 minutes, depending on what's happening in the day. And we'd have a topic, almost like coffee club, conversational club, about what's going on, the job itself, all those kind of things, so that it's a continuous learning cycle for everybody. So that's the first part, is, I think, sitting down and creating that relationship with your administrative team. And the principal has an important role to do that. And it's not easy. Like I said, I've had 5 vice principals in the last 5 years. And sometimes I think, oh, it'd be great to have somebody who just could come in and know how to do this. But I just have considered it such a privilege. And I remember when I became a principal, I sat down and then people were asking me about the budget, and I was looking around and I was scared to say, I don't even know how to go in and find where the budget is. I don't even know the password to the budget manager.
What stood out to me in the social discipline window, which we used for students, but it's absolutely for leadership as well, is that firm and fair. Here's my high expectations, but I'm also going to give you high support to get there, whatever you're needing. But if you're needing this to meet my expectations, I'm here to support you with this. And just it's such a basic way to start a relationship, but it's so key, isn't it?
Right.
And people just skim over that because I know you as a person. We get along great, etc. But this is a different relationship now. And just laying that groundwork for that VP to feel confident that they can take risks, they can make decisions, and they know if it doesn't work out, okay, it's okay. I'm going to come back and have a conversation with her and we're going to figure out how it goes. Yeah.
It was a bit of a learning curve for me. And when I became a vice principal, I thought, yeah, I have all these great ideas. I'm going to charge into the school, and because I became a vice principal at the high school I was working at. And I thought, oh yeah, these things need to change. I'm going to jump in.
Yeah.
I'm going to do all this. I'm going to shift and pave the way differently. And it took me a little bit to think, oh, I got to sit back here and stop, because my role, and I say this directly to the vice principals, your role is to understand my vision and my values of this school. So when you have come in new this year, we did a lot of work last year and the years before setting our goals. We follow the district strategic plan that defines our goals, and that drives the work that we do. It drives how we spend our budget. But your job is to understand the vision and the values that I bring to this school, because there's been a lot of work collaboratively from a number of right holder groups to make that happen. So that's your job. Your job isn't to come here or move from a teacher to a vice principal and remember all the weaknesses of my leadership and set them right, because we're a team. And the vice principals I've had have been absolutely stellar. And the ones that set themselves a little bit apart is they knew that right off the hop. They were trying to figure out and trying to help, how can I make sure the visions and the values that the principal embodies, how can I make sure that is continuing to be put into action by what the vice principal is doing? And that, I think, is an important piece that a vice principal needs to understand their role. And then in my early years, I think I didn't say anything much at any district meetings or admin meetings for probably, I would say, 2 years. And I just really watched. I watched relationships. I watched how people operate. I watched, because I started to see the landscape change. As soon as I was in leadership, my colleague friends started talking to me differently, treating me differently, not in a bad way, but in Ontario, BC, and Nova Scotia, sometimes we're referred to as the dark side. So once you go to the dark side,
Yes, yes, yes.
you walk into the staff room and the conversation stops a little bit, or people, if you're walking down the hallway, they, oh, hi, Shannon, to alert everybody that you're coming in the conversation, which I understand that. But so it took me a little bit to just listen and watch for relationships, watch to understand the landscape that we're working in.
Do you have any
Yep.
examples of stories of where that worked well, or maybe where that didn't work so well with either people that you worked with or that you saw in other schools?
Just a really simple one is the board had asked me to present about an initiative at the school, and I was working a million miles an hour and trying to do a number of things and connect with parents and meet with teachers, and something very simple. She just said, look, if you just send me the Word document, I'm going to put it into a presentation. It won't take me that long. I'll do it tonight. In many ways, her vested interest was seeing that the presentation to the board went really well. And she put that all together and then sent it for some editing and feedback. I have another VP this past year. He's also, like I said, he's become a principal, really talented. And I write a blog and weekly newsletters and all that kind of stuff. And he would always say, no, just send it to me, write it. And then he would just do all the editing, feedback really quickly. So they're very simple things, but they're things that really matter. There was in another community not far from here, I think there was a team where a lot of the leaders maybe were early on in their career, and they were struggling with how one another was attending to their work. And they started communicating that more widely rather than trying to problem solve within their office themselves. Then if you're communicating and complaining about one another more widely, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You've got to stick together. You got to problem solve together. And then you have to reach out to your district teams. In an experience like that, I think that made for a really tough couple of years.
But what do you do then, Shannon, to actually cultivate or look for people who are potential vice principals?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think so in terms of my job as a building principal, I have been fortunate to also have some say in, just have input into the hiring. And these individuals they're not work shy, and they are usually really good communicators in terms of telling, if we're working together on a project, just communicating about what will or will not happen. They're not just there to please. Shelley, what you were saying, that whole conversation goes back to that first conversation that we have in August or in the beginning of the school year, where we sit down and we say, these are our norms that we're going to operate as a team. So we're going to problem solve together. We don't have to agree. You don't have to agree with me. As a matter of fact, I prefer if you give me some feedback about things that you think might be delivered in a different way. But so that comes to the communication style of a new vice principal or somebody coming into leadership, is that the ability to focus on the topic, not on the people, about approaches to problem solve. Usually the practice has been that you get teacher leaders, people who take initiative on staff, people who understand how to be part of a team. The vice principals that I always love they have great attitude. They have fun. We laugh a lot. Like, it's a tough job. And you could go into your work every day thinking, okay, this is going to be tough. And it's true. It is tough. It's big. It's heavy. You have a lot of people and ideas and topics and date and deadlines coming all the time. And then you have to clean up the garbage and the bus has been canceled and the kids haven't been delivered or whatever it is. But the attitude of your incoming leaders really impacts the role, I think. Like attitude is everything for sure.
Mhm.
The vice principals that I've always loved I've loved to see their skill in terms of engaging with other people. If there's new families coming in to the school, they introduce themselves, or they make sure they go around to the teachers in the morning, checking in once in a while, bringing coffee, or making sure everybody knows who they are. And like I said, it's a big job. You can sit in your office and you can work away and you can meet all those deadlines, or you can write everything that needs to be written down, and you can create a schedule to beat all schedules. But if people don't have a face to the name, recognize that this person is like exuberant and outgoing and kind and
accessible.
Yeah. And a personality you can engage with, and especially teachers, support staff, custodians, bus drivers, our maintenance personnel. Like you need the confidence to go out and greet people and say hello, because that really matters. And that you might think that's a simple skill. Not everybody has it.
No, we've talked about that a lot. It's a simple action, not always a simple skill for people, but it pays forward so much, particularly when things are going wrong, that you've done those greetings and they know your face and that you're usually upbeat, but right now there's something going on, so you can't be engaged with what they're doing or whatever. You've laid all that groundwork. You've put the money into the relationship bank there.
Who would you say vice principals need to get to know on their staff if they're coming in new?
I would say, aside from your principal and your administrative team, so just parking that, then it's really important, I think, vice principals get to start to know their teachers.
Yeah.
And that's your first kind of key relationships. Probably your principal has done a lot of work and will be doing a lot of work with kind of everybody else. But I've told the vice principals in August, set yourself a schedule and plan to be in everybody's class once a month, or depending on the size of the school, 30 minutes. You don't have to give any feedback, even if you want to say for now, that was really great. I will help you understand how to give meaningful feedback over time. That's where you build those relationships. And it's not, the vice principal isn't as intimidating as the principal can be for teachers. And then that also gives the vice principal the opportunity to see the lay of the land. When you're a teacher, my whole world was opened when I became a leader in the school, because I would have my lesson plans. I'd have all what I thought were these great ideas. I'd go to work, drop off my stuff, go to my classroom. Some lessons were fantastic. Some really just, I fumbled, and then I would, rejig it and think about how to do something different the next day. But I didn't really have a sense of what was going on in everybody else's classrooms.
The bigger picture.
So that's where I think the vice principal get into those classes and start seeing that bigger picture, so that your horizon is opened up.
And what about the energy to change things that you came into the role with? I've got all these new ideas. I want to change things in the school. What would you suggest to make that shift from I want to change things that I see to becoming a team player?
I always think that's such a great question, because even as a new principal, your first year in a new school is like kicking the tires. What's going on here? What are the nuances of this place? Who are your teachers that drive things? There are teachers that are the most vocal. And then your teachers that actually drive things underground. They keep to themselves. They might have a small group that work together and can impact change there. But your job is to figure out who those people are, what those dynamics are, and what the relationships are. And like I said, in my first year, luckily I was thinking to myself one night late at night and thought, I got to shift what I'm thinking here. That's why that first year of watching and learning really matters. You won't be able to really impact change until you develop those relationships.
Do you think that all vice principals should become principals?
I don't think all vice principals want to. No, I think it depends what you want for yourself, but some people really like the role of a vice principal. And I can think of a few people over the years, and they've been career vice principals. And some people really love that. They love staying in the classroom because it's usually, like I said, a combined teaching
Right.
and leadership role. So they really like being in the classroom, but they also like to have a little bit of a foot in being able to support and be part of driving change, but holding the weight of the school. I don't think everybody is cut out for that or wants it. And I think the sooner you figure that out, probably the better.
Is there something else that you would want to say to vice principals in particular?
Commit to your personal self-care. Everybody in my world knows I get up at 5 o'clock. I sit outside, I have my coffee, I write my journal. By 6 o'clock, I do a fitness class, or I'm running, or yoga with Adrienne. I'm doing something physical, and then eating well, as well as you can, because sometimes you're walking down the hallway and you just think, I gotta get some food in here. But make sure what you're putting in is actually good quality food, and you have to commit to good care of yourself, drinking water. And people, like even tonight, I have people coming over, and so I just want to be clear, like 8 o'clock, it's over. So my bedtime is coming early because I get up early. And then the last one is actually have fun, laugh, connect with people. And be easy on yourself. My vice principal this past year, he came in one day and he said, "Oh, I made a mistake." He said, "I effed up." And I'm like, "Okay, just tell me, because we can work it out." And he was awake the whole night, and a teacher had come to ask him something, and he made a decision, and he decided on the fly what was going to happen. And then he was thinking about it later, and he thought, "Oh no, that's not the right thing to do." And then I think he was awake all night. And I said, "Look, that's okay. Like, all of us do that, but be easy on yourself. We'll fix it. It's not the end of the world. Laugh, have fun." You're around kids and people and families who are learning and growing. And it is a job that is filled with joy and challenge.
This transition from teacher to a vice principal involves significant changes in relationships and responsibilities. Vice principals must understand the school's vision and values and develop new communication strategies with colleagues. Establishing a strong, trusting relationship between principals and vice principals is absolutely essential. As Shannon indicates, this involves open communication, regularly scheduled meetings with the vice principal, and creating a supportive environment where vice principals feel confident to take risks and make decisions. Find out more about our work with restorative practices and ways to set high expectations and provide high support to new vice principals at www.restorative.ca. You can email me, stan@restorative.ca. Taking the time to set the expectations and provide the support is really part of a fair process in which there's engagement, explanation, and expectation clarity for the new vice principals.